Welcome to the lands of science fiction stories. I wish you a pleasant listening experience. The silence of space was shattered as the Aegis Voyager, a sleek human exploratory vessel, emerged from hyperspace into the vast expanse of the uncharted Omega Nebula. Captain Drake Tiberius, a seasoned veteran of many space expeditions, stared at the data on his console. It showed a planet, one that had never been catalogued by human or alien records, a planet with an atmosphere almost identical to Earth's. "Captain, the planet's readings are perfect," Lieutenant Saren said, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Oxygen levels, gravity, even water. This is a prime candidate for colonization." Drake leaned forward, intrigued. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. "Prepare the landing team, we're going down." As the shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, Drake couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The skies were an endless gradient of violet and crimson, and the ground below was a mix of towering rock formations and dense forests. It was beautiful, but there was something unnerving about it. The shuttle touched down on the surface with a soft thud. The landing team, comprised of Drake, Saren, and three others, Commander Jax Faulkner, Specialist Lara Quinn, and Engineer Nate Torren, stepped out, their boots sinking slightly into the strange, spongy soil. "This place gives me the creeps," Lara muttered, scanning the horizon. "It's too quiet." Before Drake could respond, his comlink buzzed. "Captain, we're detecting an energy signature, unknown origin. It's coming from those mountains to the north." The voice of the ship's AI, Atlas, chimed in. "Looks like we have a destination," Drake said, nodding to the team. "Let's move." The journey was eerie, the only sounds being their footfalls and the occasional rustle of wind. As they approached the mountains, they saw it. A massive structure, ancient yet impossibly advanced. Its surface shimmered as if made of liquid metal, but it stood firm, towering over them like a monument to some forgotten civilization. "What the hell is that?" Jax asked, stepping forward, his hand on his plasma rifle. Drake frowned. "I don't know, but we're going to find out. Saren, get a full scan of this thing. I want to know everything about it." Before Saren could begin, a deep, resonant hum echoed from within the structure. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the air grew thick with static. "Captain, something's happening!" Nate shouted, backing away as the walls of the structure began to shift, opening like a massive door. From within the dark interior, a figure emerged. It was humanoid, but taller than any human, clad in armor that seemed to pulse with energy. Its face was obscured by a helmet, and in its hand, it held a staff glowing with a strange alien light. "Identify yourselves!" The figure's voice was deep, mechanical, and laced with authority. Drake stepped forward, raising his hands in a non-threatening gesture. "We're explorers, from Earth. We come in peace." The figure paused for a moment, studying them. "Earth? Humanity still exists?" Drake blinked, taken aback. "Yes. We're part of a larger coalition of planets. Who are you?" "I am Zoran, last of the Karok," the figure replied, lowering the staff slightly. "Your kind was not meant to survive." Saren whispered to Drake, "Karok? I've never heard of them in any records." Drake nodded subtly, keeping his focus on Zoran. "What do you mean by that? We've thrived. Our species has spread across the stars." Zoran's helmet tilted slightly, as if in contemplation. "Humanity was once the dominant force in the galaxy, long before your kind fell into obscurity. But you have forgotten the ancient wars, the destruction wrought by your ancestors. The Karok, we were the guardians, sworn to prevent your resurgence." "Resurgence?" Jax growled, stepping forward. "We've done nothing wrong. We're explorers, not conquerors." Zoran's gaze shifted to Jax. "The past does not forget so easily. Your people nearly brought ruin to this galaxy once before. You carry the same potential for destruction within you." Drake's heart raced. This was far more than he had expected. "We are not our ancestors. Whatever happened in the past is history. We've built alliances, fostered peace." Zoran was silent for a long moment. "Perhaps. But the power you once wielded, .. has not been forgotten, nor has it been destroyed." He raised his staff, and a holographic projection appeared before them. It showed a vast armada of ships, each one bristling with weapons that defied imagination. "This was your fleet eons ago, a force so powerful that it threatened the very fabric of the universe. The landing team stared in shock. The ships were beyond anything humanity had ever created, even in their most advanced state. "What happened to them?" Lara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zoran lowered the hologram. "They were sealed away, along with the knowledge of their creation. But now, with your return to this world, the seals are weakening." Drake's blood ran cold. "You think we're here to unlock them?" Zoran nodded. "Whether you intend to or not, your presence here has already begun the process." Before Drake could respond, the ground beneath them cracked and a massive chasm opened up. From within, a dark energy surged, and the ancient structure began to pulse with power. "Captain!" Saren shouted. "We need to get out of here!" Drake turned to Zoran. "Help us! If what you're saying is true, we can stop this! Together!" Zoran hesitated, his hand tightening on his staff. "You must leave this place. If the seals break ... it will be the end of everything." Without another word, Zoran turned and disappeared into the shadows of the structure. The landing team ran, the ground crumbling beneath their feet as they raced back to the shuttle. As they lifted off, Drake looked back at the planet, now glowing with a malevolent energy. "Atlas, send a message to Earth. We've got a situation." This discovery was far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The echoes of humanity's forgotten past were awakening, and with them, the potential for unimaginable destruction. Drake knew one thing for sure: they weren't leaving this galaxy anytime soon. Capital Ul 2. * Awakening Shadows. *. Back aboard the Aegis Voyager, Captain Drake Tiberius sat in the command chair, his mind reeling from the revelations on the surface. Zoran's words echoed in his head. "Your kind was not meant to survive." The idea that humanity had once been a galactic force so powerful it threatened the entire universe was incomprehensible, and the thought that their return might spark the reawakening of that long-buried power was even worse. "Captain, I've sent the message to Earth," Atlas reported, the ship's AI manifesting its holographic form in front of him. "But it could take weeks before we get a response, especially this deep and uncharted space." Drake nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing. "We don't have weeks, Atlas. Something's happening on that planet right now, and we can't just sit here waiting." "Captain," Saren's voice broke through his thoughts. She had entered the bridge, her face pale and serious. "We need to talk, privately." Drake motioned for her to follow him to his quarters, leaving the rest of the crew on high alert. As they entered the room, Saren wasted no time. "I ran some deeper scans on the energy signatures coming from the planet," she said, her voice low. "It's growing, Drake. Whatever Zoran warned us about, it's accelerating. The core of the planet is destabilizing. If we don't do something, it could trigger a massive cataclysm." Drake exhaled sharply, leaning against the wall. "I figured as much. That structure, the energy, it's ancient tech, Saren. We're dealing with something far beyond what we understand." Saren nodded. "We need to investigate further. If the seals break—" "They already are," Drake interrupted, rubbing the back of his neck. "Zoran said our presence here started it. We're running out of time." Saren stepped closer, her expression softening slightly. "You think Zoran will help us?" Drake wasn't sure. Zoran's distrust of humanity was clear, and after what he had revealed, it made sense. But right now, they had no other option. "We'll have to find out," he said. "Get Jax and Lara. We're going back down." The shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere once more, the tension among the crew palpable. As they approached the landing site, the surface had already begun to change. The once tranquil landscape was now fractured, with veins of dark energy coursing through the ground like cracks in reality itself. "This place is falling apart," Lara muttered, her hand tightening on her blaster. "Are we sure we want to be here?" "We don't have a choice," Jax grunted from the co-pilot seat. "If we don't stop this, it won't just be this planet that's screwed." The shuttle touched down near the ancient structure, which now pulsed with an ominous glow. The air crackled with energy, and the ground rumbled beneath their feet as they disembarked. "Stay sharp," Drake ordered, leading the team toward the entrance. "Zoran's in there somewhere. And I doubt we're alone. They stepped inside, the darkness of the structure swallowing them. The air felt thick, heavy with a sense of impending doom. As they ventured deeper, the walls seemed to shift and pulse as if the entire building was alive. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple energy signatures ahead," Atlas warned through their comms. "They're not human." Drake's grip on his rifle tightened. "Stay close. Eyes up." They entered a vast chamber, and there, standing at the center of a large circular platform, was Zoran. His armor glowed faintly, but he wasn't alone. Surrounding him were several other figures, tall, armored beings, similar in appearance but exuding a more primal, volatile energy. Their eyes glowed with an intensity that sent chills down Drake's spine. "Captain Tiberius!" Zoran's voice echoed through the chamber. "You have returned!" "We don't have much time!" Drake called out, stepping forward cautiously. "The planet is destabilizing, and it's because of us! We need your help to stop it!" Zoran's helmet tilted slightly, as if studying him. "The seals are breaking. The power your ancestors wielded is stirring once again." "Then help us seal it," Drake insisted. "We don't want that power. We're not here to destroy anything." The other figures around Zoran shifted, their stances aggressive, but Zoran raised his hand, and they stilled. "You misunderstand, human. This is not something that can be stopped. The moment your kind returned to this world, the ancient protocols were activated. The release is inevitable." Drake's stomach dropped. "Inevitable? What are you saying?" Zoran stepped forward, his presence dominating the room. "The fleet your ancestors created, the *** Aegis Armada, was not just sealed away, it was locked within the very fabric of this planet. When the seals break, they will return." Jax, who had been silent, stepped up beside Drake. "So you're saying that an entire armada of superweapons is about to wake up?" Zoran nodded. "And when they do, they will seek to reclaim the galaxy." Saren's voice was laced with fear. "Then we need to leave, now. If that fleet wakes up—" Zoran's voice cut through her panic like a blade. "There is no escaping it. The Armada will not rest until it has reshaped the galaxy into what it once was." Drake's mind raced. This was a nightmare scenario. They had triggered something far worse than they could have ever imagined. But then a thought struck him, a glimmer of hope. "What if we control it?" he asked, his voice steady. Zoran's head snapped toward him, as did the others. "Control it! You are not your ancestors. You do not possess the knowledge to command such power." "But you do," Drake countered. "You've guarded this place for who knows how long. You know more about the Armada than anyone else. If we work together, maybe we can stop this fleet from tearing the galaxy apart." The chamber fell into a heavy silence. Zoran's glowing eyes seemed to bore into Drake's very soul. "You propose an alliance," Zoran said slowly, as if the idea was foreign to him. Drake stepped forward. "I'm proposing we stop a war before it starts. The galaxy doesn't need another cataclysm." For a long moment Zoran said nothing. Then finally he lowered his staff. "Very well, Captain Tiberius, but understand this. If you fail, it will be the end of all things." Drake nodded, his heart pounding. "We won't fail." As the ground shook beneath them and the air hummed with the awakening power, Drake knew they were walking a dangerous line, one that could either save the galaxy or plunge it into darkness once more. The tremors beneath the ground intensified as the ancient structure around them began to pulse with a menacing energy. Captain Drake Tiberius stood firm, his eyes locked on Zoran, the Karak guardian who now, for the first time, seemed unsure. "Zoran, we don't have much time. You said this fleet, the Aegis Armada, is bound to the planet. If we don't find a way to stop it, they'll destroy everything," Drake urged, feeling the urgency in every fiber of his being. Zoran lifted his staff, and the other armored figures around him mirrored his movement. "You misunderstand the nature of what you face, human. This fleet was not just a weapon. It was the ultimate expression of your ancestors' desire for control. To control it, you would need to prove that humanity has transcended the madness that nearly ended the galaxy once before." Drake gritted his teeth. "Then let us prove it." The energy flowing through the ground sent dark, crackling arcs through the air, and the structure groaned under the pressure of the awakening. Zoran's glowing eyes studied Drake for a long moment before he spoke again. "There is one way." Zoran said, slowly lowering his staff. The armada was designed to respond to a singular authority, a mind linked to its core. If you can interface with the core itself, you may be able to command the fleet or destroy it. Jack stepped up beside Drake. And where do we find this core? Zoran gestured toward a narrow, spiraling passage that led deeper into the bowels of the structure. Follow that path. At its end, you will find the heart of the planet, the control center of the Aegis Armada. But be warned, the path is fraught with dangers left by your ancestors to prevent intruders. Drake looked at his team. Jax, Lara, Saren, and Nate. They had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. This was the future of the galaxy hanging in the balance. "We'll make it," Drake said, his voice steady. "We have to." The passage was narrow and the walls seemed to hum with latent energy. Each step brought them deeper into the planet, the air growing thicker with tension as they descended. Saren's scanner was lit up with warnings, but they had no choice but to press forward. "Stay sharp," Drake muttered as the team entered a vast chamber. The room was filled with holographic displays of long-forgotten human ships, blueprints of weapons of unimaginable power. Jax raised his rifle as something moved in the shadows. "I've got movement!" Suddenly the ground erupted as mechanical constructs, guardians left behind by the ancient humans, burst from the walls. They were humanoid in shape, but far more menacing, their limbs bristling with weapons. "Engage!" Drake shouted, and the team sprang into action. Plasma fire erupted in the chamber as the constructs advanced, their movement swift and deadly. Lara dodged a barrage of energy blasts, rolling behind cover before returning fire. Jax fired precision shots, taking out several of the constructs with well-placed plasma bursts, while Nate and Saren worked to disable the others. "These things are relentless," Jax growled, ducking behind a shattered console as another construct closed in. "They're protecting the core!" Saren shouted, frantically typing on her datapad. "They're tied into the Armada's defense systems." Drake gritted his teeth as he fired at an approaching construct. "Then we disable the defenses." Saren's hands moved quickly across the datapad. "I'm trying. There's a back door into the system, but it's heavily encrypted." "We don't have time for encryption," Nate shouted as he blasted another construct, his rifle overheating. "We need to shut them down now." Suddenly the ground shook violently, throwing the team off balance. The room darkened for a moment before an enormous hologram of the Aegis Armada's fleet appeared above them. Massive ships, bristling with weapons, already beginning to stir. "They're waking up!" Lara cried out. "We need to move! Now!" Saren's datapad beeped, and the constructs froze, their systems suddenly offline. "Got it!" she shouted triumphantly. Drake gave a sharp nod. "Good work. Let's go." The team raced through the final passage, emerging into a massive control chamber. At its center stood the Aegis core, a swirling vortex of raw energy suspended in a field of light. It pulsed with power, its influence rippling across the planet as the Armada began to come online. Drake approached the core, feeling the weight of his responsibility. Zoran had been clear. The Armada would respond to a singular mind. He had to interface with it. But what if he couldn't control it? What if it overwhelmed him? "I'll do it," Drake said, stepping forward. Saren grabbed his arm. "Drake, are you sure? This thing could kill you." He looked at her, his gaze steady. "We don't have a choice. If I don't do this, the Armada will wipe out everything." Before she could argue further, Drake placed his hand on the control panel at the base of the core. Instantly, he felt a surge of energy course through his body, like a torrent of memories and power flooding his mind. He saw flashes of the past, humanity's rise, its wars, the creation of the Armada, and the devastation it had wrought. His mind teetered on the edge of collapse, but Drake forced himself to focus. He was not the men of the past. He was not driven by a thirst for power. He was here to protect, to preserve what remained of the galaxy. "Captain!" Jack shouted, as the room began to quake, energy crackling in the air. Drake gritted his teeth, his voice a growl. "I can do this! I can control it!" With a final surge of will, Drake channeled the energy into the core, wresting control from the ancient protocols. The Armada, which had begun to rise from the planet's surface, suddenly stopped. The power flowing through the planet diminished, and the rumbling ceased. Drake collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily. The core had been subdued, But it hadn't been destroyed. Saren rushed to his side. "Drake, are you okay?" He nodded weakly. "Yeah, I've shut it down. The armada? It won't be a threat." Zoran appeared at the entrance of the chamber, watching the scene unfold. "You have done what I thought was impossible, human. You have proven that humanity can rise above its past." Drake struggled to his feet, his body still tingling from the energy. "The armada is locked away again. It won't wake up unless someone tries to use it." Zoran nodded. "Then we must ensure that no one does." As the team made their way back to the surface, the energy that had threatened to destroy the planet dissipated. The skies above the ancient structure were clear once more, and the rumbling had ceased. Drake stood at the shuttle's ramp, looking back at Zoran. "Thank you." Zoran inclined his head. "You have earned my respect, Captain Tiberius. Perhaps in time the galaxy will look to humanity not as destroyers, but as protectors." Drake nodded, stepping into the shuttle. As they lifted off, the team watched as the ancient structure below began to sink back into the ground, its secrets sealed once more. The past had been put to rest for now, but Drake knew that the future was uncertain. The galaxy had seen the power humanity once wielded, and not everyone would be content to leave it buried. But for today, at least, they had survived. And that was enough.